and welcome to our presentation today. My name is Kathleen, and I've been with Interface since 2020. I was the past president of the International Association of College Admission Counselors. This brings together admission officers from around the world, and mostly the United States, and global college admission counselors. And I was the president and ran that organization for close to 3 years. So the name of this presentation is, how College of Letters of Recommendation can be your secret weapon. And we'll explain more about that as the presentation goes. So these recommendations are a crucial role in your college application process. They provide admission officers with insights into your character, your academic abilities, and potential that grades and test scores just can't convey. We're going to show a graphic on the next slide, but in 2019, which is just a few short years ago, 55% of colleges consider these letters to be of considerable importance in their decisions. Now, you might wonder, thank you, Jotine, you might wonder, well, what about the other 45%? Well, for example, the University of California system does not use letters of recommendation in their decision making, but the majority of universities and colleges that our students apply to and that you'll most likely apply to do require these letters. So on this graph, it shows a bit about what is most important, and this is something for you to consider as you're moving through the process. So certainly your grades in all your courses are the most important, and then what types of classes you're taking. You can see that test scores are important, the essay that you write, and finally, either the counselor recommendation or the teacher recommendation. So in the first half of the items that a university will consider when they decide to admit you is a teacher or counselor letter of recommendation. So the case study here is just Sarah, a high-achieving student, secured her recommendation from her chemistry teacher that highlighted her leadership in group projects, her ability to explain complex concepts to peers. This played a significant role in her acceptance to a competitive STEM program at her dream university. Okay, so the first tip is to choose the right teachers. So there's 3 areas that you should look at when you're thinking about who should I choose. So as mentioned in the previous slide, choose teachers from core subject or those that relate to your intended major. Now I want to point out this can be for summer programs as well as college applications. So if you're in a 9th or 10th grade or year 10 and 11 where you're at, this can also be for summer programs. So it will correspond to that as well. So the core subjects, if you're not familiar with that, is math, English, languages, science courses, humanities or social studies, and typically not PE or a music teacher per se, but typically the 2 teachers who teach you in the classroom and who are going to be related to your subject relevance. And the relationship quality. So pick teachers who know you well and have seen your growth over time. So this could be in 1 year or in several years if you've had the same teacher over several years. Sometimes students say that they don't know, their best relationship is not with a core teacher, with their math teacher, for example, but many universities actually require that you get them from maybe a math science side and then a humanities English side. Additionally, sometimes kids think that getting a letter from the head of school is important. But if that head of school doesn't know you, if you don't have a relationship with them, then that letter doesn't really support your application at all. And then finally, you should prioritize teachers who have seen you in we call it junior, senior, or 11th grade or 12th grade, or year 12 and 13 classes. So it should be teachers who have taught you most recently. And our case study shows a student, Michael. He was aspiring to study journalism, and he asked his English teacher, who was also his debate club advisor, for a recommendation. So the teacher could see him in 2 scenarios, right? So she or he could speak to his writing skills, critical thinking skills, and public speaking abilities, providing a well-rounded perspective on his ability for a journalism program. So I think one of the first things that you can do is start building these relationships early. So developing positive relationships with teachers is ongoing. So one of the ways that you can do it, we always ask kids, well, how are you in the classroom? What are things that teachers like to see? They generally like to see active participation. They like you to engage in class discussions and ask thoughtful questions. They also like to see a consistent effort over time. So another thing that teachers like to see is that you do the work that they assign, that you read the books that they assign you to read, and that you follow up with them if you're not doing well in class. So to demonstrate a dedication to your study beyond just grades, that you actually seem to care about what they're teaching. And finally, a positive attitude to show enthusiasm for the learning and willingness to help others. We'll look on a further slide to see what they have to actually rate you on. And one of those is your ability to work with other students and your leadership capacity in class. So the case study here, Emma, a quiet student, made an effort to stay after class once a week to discuss additional readings with her history teacher. This consistent engagement allowed her teacher to write a detailed recommendation highlighting her analytical skills and passion for the subject. So
Okay.
this student stayed after class. She did extra reading and then she discussed it with her teacher. So her teacher didn't have to guess about her involvement in class and her passion. She could tell by that relationship. And teachers love this. They generally went to university themselves for the subject that they're teaching, so they love to talk about it. And they love that their students are interested and want to talk about it. I will say this is something that if you're a student or your student does not do this, they're shy, they're introverted, it does take practice. But the more that you become an active participant in class, the easier it gets. You just have to start somewhere. So I will say everybody can start to be a more active participant, even if they're shy. So next, it's about communicating your goals for the letter. So this is where you need to be intentional about what you want to be in the letter, but also why you're asking for the letter. So sometimes teachers do wonder, why did you pick me? And you might say, just for example, in the case study, Alex, he's applied to engineering programs and he met with his physics teacher to explain his passion for renewable energy. So he selected this teacher because it had to do with something he wanted to study. And then the other part is to mention achievements or traits you'd like them to speak about. Teachers have many students in the classroom and they remember every student, but they might not remember specifics. So it's up to you to mention the types of things that you think would be important for them to mention. This could be because it's the type of university that you're applying to or the summer program, but you might mention to them what you think would be important and then discuss how this aligns with your aspirations, with where you want to apply, with the summer program you're going for, and how you hope to use that. So again, back to the case study, when Alex met with his physics teacher to explain his passion, this conversation led to a recommendation that specifically highlighted Alex's innovative approach to energy-related projects in class. So how do you do this? And can you go back one? Yeah, providing some more supporting materials. So the next tip is to create a recommendation packet for your teacher. So you've given them your goals of why you're asking them, and now it's important that you give them information to include in the letter as well. Now, it's possible that your school has its own process for this and has their own recommendation packet they'd like you to do, but we also think you should do your own as well. So writing down specific things or anecdotes or projects that you'd like them to mention. You might create an updated CV that has any activities that you have done related to that course or the type of summer program that you're going to do. The extracurricular activities and leadership roles that might be related to this program or college that you're going to, and a summary of personal goals and notable achievements. We do want you to create a CV that is particular to this class or this teacher because we don't want them mentioning every single thing that you've done because those letters should be done by the counselor. This one is the teacher. So it's really about you in that subject in that class. So you would include this information in your recommendation packet. So for the case study, Olivia created a detailed packet for her art teacher, including photos of her best work, a write-up of her community art project, and this led to a vivid recommendation that painted a clear picture of her artistic talent and community engagement. And the teacher was able to use that to write their letter. So when should you be doing this? Again, it depends on what year of high school that you are and what you're aiming towards, whether it's the summer or for university. But we do tell students that the best letters come when you've asked in advance. So generally, if you ask 6 to 8 weeks before the deadline that you would need the letter, and that way it puts it in the teacher's brain. And then you can send a gentle reminder 2 to 3 weeks before the due date. This way you know if the letter is going to get done and if there's any problems in getting the letter or if they need more information from you. And then to have some backup options in case a teacher declines. There can be many reasons why a teacher can't do it, or perhaps something comes up and they're not able to complete the letter. So you can see in the case study, James planned ahead and he asked 3 teachers for letters of recommendation at the start of his 12th grade year. When one teacher fell ill, he already had 2 solid recommendations, and then he quickly approached his backup choice without any stress. So again, because he developed strong relationships, he was able to go and get that 3rd recommendation that he wanted. It's also possible that your teacher may limit how many they write. There are teachers who say, I only write 10 letters a year. That's all I have time for. So if you're asking them 6 to 8 weeks before the deadline, you're sure that you're going to be one of those 10 that those teachers will write for. Finally, how do you express gratitude? And it's not only essential or polite, it's essential. So this is how do you show appreciation? And no matter when you're asking a teacher, whether it's for the summer or for the college application, be sure to thank them in person after they agree. So if they say, I'll write the letter for you, thank them. And then send a thank you note and an update after they submit the recommendation. So it's really important to keep this teacher on your good side. And then keep them updated with any results that happen. And this is because if you're applying for a summer program, you might need them for your college letter of recommendation. I've even had students write me when they were applying for medical school. So they had graduated from college and still wanted me to write a letter of recommendation. And I definitely felt comfortable doing this when they had kept me posted on what they were doing and had kept that relationship alive. So again, this is a really important step, is to thank the teacher for taking that time. So in the case study, Maria sent a handwritten thank you note to her recommenders detailing how their letter support impacted her. She later shared her acceptance news, fostering a lasting relationship that extended beyond high school. So I was going to say the teachers keep these letters too, and many times when they've had a hard day at work, they do go back and read them in order just to remember you. So that's a good thing to think about. And finally, I wanted to show you the form on the application. This is for a college application, but it also is sometimes you might find it in a summer application. But this is what a teacher is ranking you on. Universities actually ask teachers to make this checkbox, right? So you can see the comments here. Either you're below average, average, good, very good, excellent, outstanding, or one of the few I've ever encountered in my career. So you can see how tough it is for the teachers to make these check marks. And then on the left-hand side, you can see what they're commenting on. So one is that academic achievement. Again, that's really how you're doing in class, perhaps what your grade is, how you're testing, but the rest is all personal qualities that they're assessing you on. So you can take a look here and see, I'm not going to go through each one of them, but just take a look at the left and see what that teacher is assessing you on. So if you're wondering, what are the things that I can be doing and what are they looking for in these letters? Exactly on the left-hand side here is what they're looking for these teachers to comment on. The next slide, then they have to write a letter. When we talk about writing the letter, this is what they're asked to write about. So how long have they known you and in what context? So it could be 2 years, it could be 1 year, it could be 2 months. All of that matters as to how well that teacher knows you. Then they ask the first words that come to mind. So you have to think to yourself, what are the first words that you would want them to say? And you can actually include that in your counselor or the teacher recommendation packet. You can write down, these are the first words that come to mind when I think of myself. And then finally, they write 1,000 words or less, a letter that helps you be differentiated from other students. So this isn't how you're just the same. This is what they see in a unique quality. So again, that's where that recommendation packet comes in handy. If you write them something of how you see yourself different, and if you don't see yourself as different, this is where you have time to think about that, to think about what is it that I would want them to say that would distinguish me from the other thousands of kids who apply to either this university or a summer program. So again, this is something that you can provide for the teacher because they're going to be writing a letter based on this. And this just, some common mistakes to avoid. If you've been listening to the presentation, these are probably things that you think of yourself. But again, do not ask at the last minute. Do not procrastinate. That is a sure sign of not getting the best letter that you possibly could. Again, poor selection, choosing teachers who either don't know you well or in subjects that don't align with your intended major. So again, not choosing the PE teacher if you're going to go into engineering. For example, you do need to choose ones that are subject related. Also, lack of context, failing to provide the materials or information. I think that is something the teacher, I've had teachers come and say, well, I know that student well enough, I can just write the letter from what I know. Sometimes that is true. But why would you put that to chance? You can still give them a one-page information about yourself and what you've done in the class or outside the class that relates to that course. And finally, over asking, requesting too many recommendations from too many teachers, or many times kids think outside references that have no impact on what they're going to study. So they think family members, sometimes internship supervisors can be too much, from adults outside that don't know them well. So too many letters is also not a good thing. And some universities don't allow that anyway. So the case study, Tom, rushing to meet deadlines, hastily asked his newest teacher for a recommendation without providing any supporting materials. And he got a resulting generic letter that lacked depth and specificity that could have strengthened his application. Okay, so this is our last slide. And what can you be doing now? Well, start building your network now. Start investing in building relationships with your teachers, which will then be the foundation for your recommendations. Start investing in who's on your team in the school. Look around. Which teachers do you see who show an interest in you and who are supervisors for the activities? And who do you want to support you? And then start going out of your way to start or building a relationship with them. It doesn't always have to be in the classroom. You can say hello to a teacher, goodbye, ask them about their weekend. I mean, all of this, as you can see, there's personal qualities as well as academic qualities that go into these letters. So you can start to be establishing those relationships. And as I mentioned, it gets easier. If you're somebody who's shy or hasn't done that type of outgoing behavior before, just start now. And then when you actually do need the letter, you'll have 5 or 6 people who are available and ready to write for you and who are excited about writing for you. That's what you want. So Elisa, inspired by this presentation, began actively engaging with her teachers. By senior year, she had multiple strong relationships, resulting in personalized, compelling recommendations that significantly boosted her applications. Thank you. Do we have any questions? That depends on your school, if they allow that. Most of the schools that I know do not allow students to view the contents. And I've seen it actually have a negative impact on the student. Sometimes the way the student reads the letter is not how a teacher meant the letter. I also had a time when a student There was one teacher showed her the letter, and she was, of course, really happy with that. And then her second teacher said, I actually don't share my letters. And so she did not want me to send that letter on her behalf because she worried that the reason the teacher wasn't showing her was because it must say something not so flattering. But actually, it was a fantastic letter. But I followed her recommendation. I tried to explain this to her, but she thought for sure there must be something negative in it. So no, it is actually better that students don't see the letter. But if they complete that recommendation packet and they give all the information that they can provide, then I have used exactly what a student has said in their recommendation packet on one of my letters. So this is where they can make this impact. But it depends on the school if they show you, and most don't, from my experience. That's a really great question. And to be honest, probably all of them in the IB program. You only get 6, and group 6 is an art, or it can be an art or another content, more content subject. But still, we would probably pick group 1 through 5 to be the core content, and then group 6, if it's an art, maybe a little less so if the student isn't going to pursue that at university. It's kind of sad to say that. The IB would not like to hear that, but that's what we would suggest. One of the questions that we had earlier was about what if my teacher on my report has given me negative feedback and actually kind of said that I need to improve. And this isn't so much the academic way, but maybe the behavior way. And what I could say is, what a gift, right? That teacher already is letting you know the type of behavior that they don't want to see, and which you can say, well, this is the behavior that they do want to see. So I will tell you, we talked about a teacher that can show growth over time. And if you had a struggle in the beginning, no matter what, if it was academic or non-academic, now you have a way to know, what do I need to do different, and to start improving. The other thing is you don't need to use that teacher either. I mean, hopefully you have, again, like we said, 3 to 4 different teachers that you could ask. So if you really feel like maybe that teacher can't say anything super positive about me, then move aside. And take that as, again, a gift and an opportunity to ask somebody else. Sometimes those teachers will decline as well. As we said, ask the right teachers. And if that teacher says, isn't there somebody better? There might be somebody better, or I don't know if I know you that well. Take that as a gift, and move aside and start asking the next teacher. So there are times in which the teacher in your school may not feel comfortable writing the letter in English, and that's fine. If they want to write the letter in their own language, in their first language, that's fine. And you can either ask them to run it through a translator. That would be fine. They can run it through a translator and sign it. Or you can run it through a translator if they're okay with that, and they can sign it. This is not an uncommon issue because most universities or summer programs are used to getting letters from around the world, but I would have it translated before you send it in. You can even get an official translation if you want to. So I think it's best if the teacher does write in their first language, because they can be more descriptive, and and they feel most comfortable with that. So definitely allow that to happen and just have it translated.